Welcome to everyone today. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Colleen Strickler and I'm the head of sales operations at JobsInME. JobsInME.com is the leading online job board in Maine. We are pleased to present the information today to assist you in your future job search. Searching for a job is a process and takes time and energy. The panelists here today from some of the best companies in Maine will offer tips and answer questions about how to effectively land that first job. So now let's introduce the panelists. From MaineHealth, we have Stephanie Garland. She's a workforce development specialist at MaineHealth. Stephanie, can you tell us about what you do and what brought you here today?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for the intro. My name is Stephanie. I work at MaineHealth in the Center for Workforce Development. We have many different programs and initiatives here that we work on in the center, but my primary focus is on youth programming and pipeline efforts, including our summer non-clinical intern program, which is geared towards college students, as well as high school and middle school career exploration and programming. So I've been with MaineHealth for a little over 3 years now. I started in the fall of 2017 after graduating from Mount Holyoke College with a bachelor's degree in English and a focus in communications. To be honest, I had never considered healthcare as a career path or an industry for myself, and didn't even know that opportunities existed for people in healthcare who necessarily weren't interested in working with patients and on the clinical side. But I'm so happy that I ended up where I did, because especially now in COVID times, I feel like healthcare is a great place to be if you really want to make an impact and help others. So I know the booklet provides some info about MaineHealth, but I'll give you just a little more info. So for those who don't know MaineHealth, we're the largest healthcare organization in Maine and the leading healthcare provider serving Northern New Hampshire. We're also one of the largest private employers in Maine with over 22,000 employees. Our flagship hospital is Maine Medical Center here in Portland, where I sit, but we also are across Maine in southern Maine, coastal Maine, western Maine. We have local health organizations, including hospitals, physician practices, our clinical laboratory, Nordics, and our home health agency, Maine Healthcare at Home. We hire individuals across our system in every role that you can think of, ranging from doctors and nurses to people in IT, in HR, food service, maintenance and engineering, and beyond. So again, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really looking forward to this webinar.
Excellent, thank you. And next, Michael Ross is currently the Manager of Talent Acquisition and Organizational Development for General Dynamics Bath Iron Works. That's quite a title there, Michael. Can you give us a brief description of General Dynamics Bath Iron Works and what you do there?
Sure, thanks, Colleen. Appreciate it, and welcome to everybody that's on the other side of the line here. So, as Colleen said, my name is Mike Ross. I manage talent acquisition and organizational development here at BIW. And for those of you that are not aware, Bath Iron Works, we are one of the 2 leading manufacturers of the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, which is a very large naval vessel that measures at about 515 feet long, 80 feet wide, and about 9,600 tons. So we have about 6 of those under construction now. We have an 11-ship backlog, meaning the Navy has ordered 11 of those, and you'll notice that we have an increased hiring pace, and that's why. The long and the short of it is we are the largest skilled trade employer in the state of Maine, at just shy of about 6,500 employees and growing. We have to hire just about 2,700 skilled trade level positions this year, another 300 to 500 salaried. So that'll bring us up around 8,000 or so employees, as long as I'm doing my job right at the end of the year. So my job as the manager of talent acquisition and OD here is to essentially manage all strategic talent operations for the company, as well as any inbound programs. So I do all of the veteran hiring, I do the internship program, we have professional development programs. I won't bore you with all of the titles of those programs, but essentially anything that has to do with the intake and retention of talent here at the organization is my function.
Nice. Next, we have Payson Weirs from Dead River. Payson is the general manager of the Farmington market for Dead River. Can you tell us a little bit about Dead River Company and what you do?
I can. Thank you, Colleen. Good morning, everybody. So I'm the general manager for Dead River Company, as Colleen stated, up here in the Farmington market. I'm responsible for all the northwestern region, delivering heating fuel and services for customers that are in need of repairs or general maintenance. As Colleen stated, this is the Farmington market, but we cover all the way to New Hampshire from here and up to almost the Canadian border in Eustis. Here we have Dead River Company is the largest, I believe, in New England for heating and services rendered to customers. I'm generally responsible for the safety and productivity of my team here. We have about 40 employees in this location, 4 branch offices and 6 bulk plants.
Nice. Okay, and finally we have from Contour 360, Charlie Day. Charlie is the Vice President and General Manager at Contour 360. He is in his 42nd year in the field of industrial manufacturing. Charlie, can you tell us about Contour 360 and what brought you here today?
You bet, thank you, and welcome to all today. Contour 360 is a high-performance maker of solid carbide round shank tooling for CNC operations. I'll say that with a mouthful of marbles. And we make generally tools for, we make tools that other people can't. Our clientele base is all industry sectors nationwide. Here in Maine, we service Pratt & Whitney, General Electric, ABB, Corning, and several, many others. We've been in business since 1979, and we're located in the beautiful metropolis of Cornish, Maine. And what a sight it is too. But you can read up on Cornish. What I'd like to do is answer is what brought me here today. And it's really twofold. It's because of you, and it's due to an old friend. So let me tell you about the old friend first. I was a high school senior, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And I had a guidance counselor named Warren Moorhart. And he wrapped his arms around me, metaphorically, and really took me under his wing, mentored me on how to do a job interview, mentored me on what to say, how to conduct myself. And then he also lined up some interviews. And there was one interview I got that I got the job, and that was the first job in my career in industrial manufacturing, and I've been in it ever since. So that gentleman right there, I've never forgot. I've always tried to pay him back by paying it forward throughout my entire life, because he had a huge impact on me. So what I'm here today is I'm here to help you. That's what this is all about. I want to help you understand the other side of the desk in the interview. You've got your perspective that you bring to the desk to get the interview. Now, what is that person on the other side? What are they looking for? What are they listening for? How to listen to the questions. You can tell their thought process by actually immersing yourself into the interview, listening, paying attention, and asking questions. Also want to make sure that, hey, as you start off your life, do you have a passion? Do you have a dream? Because right now is the time to follow it. If you've got something you really is close to your heart that you think you'd like to do for the rest of your life, give it a go, because as you get older, those windows get narrower and then they eventually close. I think one of the advantages that you folks have today is that as you open the front door of your house, your world is in front of you. You're standing on a precipice of what you're going to do. So what we want to do as business leaders is help prepare you, give you a little bit of insight so that you can land the job, the career of your choice and of your dreams, help you put the best step forward, because this is your first step forward. This is probably one of the most important steps that you're going to have in your business career.
Well, you've inspired me. Goodness, and we just got started. Thank you, all of you, for those introductions and telling us about yourself. So let's get into the meat of this. Who is hiring, and how do I, as a job seeker, identify the companies that I may be interested in working for? JobsInME is a great place to start, and later in the program, we will go over how best to use our job board. We've also included steps on how to use JobsInME.com in the e-booklet that has already been shared with you. For now, though, we are going to focus on what to do when you have found a job that you want to apply for. What next? What steps do you need to take to make it a reality? We'll begin with the first question for our panelists, and we hope to answer all of them. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A and we will get to them. We'll try to allow time for question and answers throughout the presentation. So first, let's start talking about resumes, references, and cover letters. Stephanie, first is you. Not all companies require a cover letter, but you have said you always recommend one. Why and what do you look for?
Absolutely. Thank you. So cover letters are one of those kind of elusive, challenging pieces of the application. And at MaineHealth, we don't necessarily require a cover letter, and other employers may not either, but I strongly encourage that you put some effort and time into creating one and including one in your application. And I'll tell you a little bit why. So cover letters really help us learn more about you. So your application, we'll talk more throughout the webinar, but your application is kind of, the clear, clean details about you and your experience. The cover letter is an opportunity to really tell us more about you, why you're interested in the role, why you're applying, and helps give us a sense of you. It really sets you apart from others. And while your resume shows kind of your direct and indirect experience, your cover letter can state your intent and your interest for the position you're applying for. One note, we can, in recruitment, always tell if your cover letter is copied and pasted or the same one that you use for multiple jobs, which it's okay. We all, you can search for multiple jobs at once. It's part of the process, but I highly recommend, taking that time, reviewing, making sure it's customized for the job you're applying for. With interns in particular, I can't tell you, I have seen some cover letters that don't even say MaineHealth on them, which is always a little surprising. So really take that time, review it and submit it feeling good about what you're applying for. Because submitting a thoughtful and customized cover letter really shows that you're taking the process seriously. You don't have to be the best writer in the world, but we just want to get to know you. So that's why I absolutely always recommend including a cover letter.
That's great information and interesting about that you can tell about copy and paste. So Michael, you are next. Let's talk about the perfect resume. Do you like a resume with fancy borders, pictures, 2 or more pages long? How much spelling and grammar matter? Things like, does the order of items on the resume matter? And should someone proofread a resume before they send it out?
So thanks, Colleen. I get the hot button topic. I think this is fantastic. Thank God I have your question written in front of me so that I can go by it, because this is always a touchy subject. And the reason I say that is because what is the perfect resume, right? The perfect resume really is the document that you as the applicant say, this is me, this is perfect, this is what I like. If you're not comfortable with your resume, we're going to see that on this side of the desk in a heartbeat. It happens very, very quickly. I tell people all the time in presentations like this, you have about 6 to 8 seconds to impress me with your resume. So how do you do it? How are you going to format that? And there are tricks to the trade, but as I say to people every day, if you were to go to the bookstore, which I don't even think bookstores exist anymore today, which is kind of funny, and looked for a book on how to write a resume, right? Grab that book. And you wouldn't be able to grab that book. There'd be about 800 in that aisle telling you how to write a resume. And the reason I say that is because everybody that you're going to hear from today and in life will give you an opinion on how you should write a resume. But the key is there's some small rules. So do you like a resume with fancy borders and pictures? No, absolutely not. I don't want to see your picture. I don't want fancy borders. The only time that sometimes those are acceptable is when I've seen more of a graphical artist resume. If you're applying to be a graphic artist or something in the graphic arts, that may be acceptable. But again, my opinion, I would tell you no. Pictures are very much an international thing. We see them a lot with international applicants that are coming across on a CV. They will include their picture. I do not want a picture. I do not want any of your personal information, no date of birth, no dogs, no cats, no, I don't want to really know a whole bunch about that. Most times today for high school students, college graduates, we recommend a one-page resume. And the reason for that is that's mostly what people are instructed to today. As you go through life and go through your career and you gain more notable experience, your resume should grow. The particular rule of thumb is 10 years, right? Go back 10 years, don't go back anymore. You start to border on relevant versus irrelevant information. But once you cross over the misnomer of one page versus 2 page, you really have to have the level of experience and the skills to quantify a 2-page resume. So don't try to fit it on 2 pages as a high school student. Go with 1 page. That's what you have. Spelling and grammar is of the utmost important. Given the tools that you have to work with today in Microsoft Office and other packages, there's no excuse for any misspelled words. That resume should have gone through multiple reviews before it's ever sent to an employer. As far as order goes, I prefer to see a chronological resume. What does that mean? It means I want to see your latest position up front. I want to see it at the top and move through your career to the bottom. I want to see your education at the top. I want to know essentially very quickly who you are, what you do, where you went to school, where you graduated from, what does your most recent job look like? Because resumes are read from top to bottom, left to right. So take that again, that we read them from the top to the bottom, from the left to the right. And I know that looks backward on the screen, but if you put all of your pertinent information in the bottom right-hand corner, you've got 6 seconds to get my eyes to that bottom right-hand corner, and I can all but guarantee you're probably not going to pull it off. So put that information in the top left-hand corner, put it in front of us. Don't be afraid to use tricks like bolding, right? Read the job description. If the job description calls for certain things, put those in your resume and bold them. Like Stephanie was saying, it's very easy to tell cut and pasted resumes. If you're using the same summary to every single job that you apply to, it's only a matter of time before that bites you. So every resume should be tailored to the job you're applying to every single time. But what tends to happen as we start to submit tens of resumes or hundreds of resumes in certain cases, you as a human become lazy. We all do. It's human nature. And what tends to happen is that's where the mistakes happen. I've had people submit me resumes and cover letters with the wrong company name on it. Like Stephanie said, misspelled words, wrong words are bolded, wrong skills are highlighted, which forces me, and some of you today might be saying, well, what does that matter? Well, it immediately tells me that you have limited to no attention to detail, right? And I can go through a bunch of other adjectives that we draw from that. But those are the important things that we look at very, very quickly in that 6 to 8 seconds. So should someone proofread your resume? Absolutely. I would send it to 3 or 4 people. Take your resume, take the guidance that you learned today, prepare your resume, get it to a point that you feel very comfortable with, and then send it to 5 people. Give it to your parents, give it to your guidance counselor, give it to a friend of your mother who's in a hiring position, send it to me. Send it to those people that are willing to give you their opinion, but value it as their opinion. The resume is right when you look at it and you say, okay, this is it. I feel 100% confident with that, because the day you walk into an interview to meet with a hiring manager with that resume, the confidence will shine through.
Great tips. I need to go update my resume.
I hear you.
Okay, Charlie, I know that you require letters of reference. Can you explain why, and who do you recommend students ask for?
The cover letter, I like Stephanie's description on the cover letter. It allows you to express yourself, okay? And that's very important. The resume and the application, what all 3 of these documents have in common is you wrote them, and they're about you, and they're flat. It's a piece of paper. I want to know the dimension of who I'm talking to. So I encourage reference letters, because I want to understand what are other people's perspectives of outside of what I'm going to gain by interviewing with you. I want to know how reliable you are, what they think of you. Are you a good student? Are you a good person? And also you want to get references not just from family and friends, but also adult workers, adult professionals of friends, people. And if you can, ask them to put the reference letter on their letterhead if they're comfortable with that. That's going to bring about a little bit of a professional perspective to that. And it's also going to show a little bit more depth, outreach, a little bit of thought that goes into it, as well as what is a good scattering of people in your world who can give a good insight into who you are, what you're about, and what I can see and gain from that. So to me, it just gives a dimension, and it just adds further to that, to the cover letter. And like Mike says, the details on the resume, it's all got to be spot on. And with today's tools, there's no reason for any grammar or spelling mistakes on any of these documents. And then it comes together as a package, and it presents to us as employers who you're about, and it does so on many, many levels.
Now, do you want the letters of reference to come with the original, with the resume, or after they've interviewed? You want it with the resume?
We hire specific, so it's not like we put general ads out. So in our organization, we look at it where if it's something that it's specific, they've had, for instance, they are operating a big piece of machinery, and then they're welcome to do that. If it's just a general job that you're applying for, entry, especially, I would take it, not speaking for Mike, but like Path Ironworks or any of my co-panelists here, you might want to put it on the resume that, references are available upon request, whatever they're comfortable with.
Okay, thank you. Now, Payson, we often hear from job seekers that they submit an application, resume, and cover letter and never hear back from the companies that they have applied to. What is the best way for a job seeker to follow up to be sure that you've received the material that you require?
So I learned this when I was younger, and it's kind of always stuck with me. I personally prefer a phone call to the organization or the hiring department of that organization to follow up. There's lots of ways to communicate, but for me, if an applicant sends in their information and then they want to follow up in a few days to make sure that it was received and being reviewed, that phone call gives them one extra chance to kind of express themselves, like all the co-panelists have said, as well as potentially talk to that hiring manager. So for me, I prefer, and I've always done this myself, is to follow up with a phone call to the organization that I applied at. A lot of these applications come in through jobs boards or JobsInME, so you don't have a direct line of communication to the actual hiring department or human resource department through those emails. So a phone call to the branch perhaps that you've applied at. For us, we cover all of New England, so you want to be specific as to which branch you applied at. Take the time and give them a call and just ask the follow-up to make sure that they receive the information.
Okay, so now we get to the point of you've received a stack of resumes as recruiters or employers, hiring managers. You take that stack of applications, cover letters, and resumes. What's next? Charlie, how do you decide who to interview?
It's a good question. At one point, I think also y'all might want to understand is that it costs a lot of money for a company to hire somebody, because there's going to be investment in that and training, et cetera. So one of the reasons why this process is so tedious is that we as employers want to make sure that we're making the right decision on the behalf of the organization because of the cost factors that are involved in this, and both tangible and intangible. So what we're looking for, how do I look? I'll flip through. We hire specific, as I mentioned. So whatever the job details are, then that's what I'm looking for in the information that's presented to me. We are not looking, especially as high school students entering the workforce, we are not looking for the skills that you may not have. You're 18 years old. How can you develop a lot of that? So what we're looking for is I'm going to be looking for measurement for what skill sets, skill potentials that are there that you do have. What do we have to work with? What are the possibilities? And what do you bring to the table just based on that piece of paper that you've identified and you've told us about through your cover letter, et cetera? What do you want to do? Are you looking for a job? Are you looking for a career? Where do you need help? This is something that does not disqualify anybody. We're just trying to get an overall measurement of, okay, we've got strong opportunities and strong skills in this area. And you can glean a lot of this through the application or resume, but also, where they might need some support which we don't mind making an investment. We're more interested in personal and career development than we are job placement. And let me qualify that is that that's an investment that's being made by you into our organization, but also by us into you. We also look to make sure that we want to prepare you if you, we want to look somebody that we can develop. Should you ever leave our organization, then you left in with a much better resume, so to speak, than what you came to us with. So what I'm looking for is opportunity. Bottom line, what opportunity can we have? And it's mutual opportunity. What can we do for you? And then what can you do for us?
It's excellent. Stephanie, what would stand out on an application or resume if this is a student's first job and they don't have work experience?
Absolutely. This is a great question. So we all have to start somewhere, and we all start without job experience. So building off, what Charlie was saying, we really want to get a full sense of you. And if you haven't yet had a job, or maybe you've had a summer job, things that you can include in your resume that in your cover letter and your application that we want to see and that are still relevant are, extracurricular activities, any summer jobs you've had, any internships, your volunteer experience, the things that make you, the things that tell us about you. So I can tell from your application if you've been participating in a certain sport for 4 or 5 or 6 years, that that's something you're really passionate about, that you you can express skills of teamwork, that you're a team player, that you can communicate to others, that you have leadership skills. If say you led a volunteer effort at your school or in your community, all these things tell us about you, and that's a good place to start. So those are really important. And again, I'll just come back to the cover letter. This, in your application, if you don't have a lot of job experience, the cover letter, again, is a good place to, explain a bit and talk a bit about yourself and give us a sense of you. And once again, I know there's a lot of pressure when you're applying for maybe your first job or your first opportunity, but we know we're human beings. We know we've all started somewhere. And it really depends on the job you're applying for. So again, building off of what Charlie was saying, each job is different. Each job, we're looking for a different skill set, something different. So really pay attention to the job posting and see what skills the employer is looking for, and customize your application and your experience to say how you'd be a good fit.
That's a great tip. Mike, can you add anything to what Stephanie and Charlie mentioned?
Yeah, so all great points. I love Charlie's point about, applications and resumes being flat. And that is probably one of the best lines I've heard in a long time. And I probably will end up stealing that, Charlie. So
help yourself.
But really, what you're trying to do with your resume is create question, right? You want to be specific enough that you apply for the job, that you qualify for the job, but create some question. And once you create question with your resume, you've just secured the interview, right? You've made it to the next step, because that's the important part. And like Stephanie said, you got to start somewhere. You're all young, you're coming out of school, everybody's hitting you left and right with what are your big boy, big girl decisions going to be for the rest of your life. And you're overwhelmed. You're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I have no idea what I want to be when I grow up. And one thing that young people forget a lot is networking. Do not forget to network. Start now, don't end. It's something that will be with you for your entire career and your entire life. Talk to your parents, talk to your friends, talk to past bosses. Maybe you're applying to BIW and you know someone that knows someone at BIW. We'll make that call, see if they're willing to put an inside call for you. Because what happens is all of a sudden I get a call as the manager of talent acquisition from somebody that works here that's willing to put their name on the line and vouch for you and tell me something about you that's not on your resume that may be the perfect conduit that we need to make sure that you're qualified for that role. So networking, I can't stress it enough. I will never stop stressing it. It is the most important job search tool that you will ever have and ever learn. So, and quite honestly, today, just by participating in this, you're now networking. You've got 4 employers that are willing to take time out of their day to spend talking to you. Make sure that you jot down our names and who we are. Don't be afraid to send an email to just say, hey, are you willing to help me? Are you willing to look at my resume? Are you willing to tell me, do you know anyone here? Ask the question, Because think of yourselves, when your friends come to you and ask for help, do you tell them no? You don't. None of us on the line are going to tell you no. If we were, we wouldn't be here today, right? We wouldn't be taking this time out. So never be afraid to ask the question. And I know as high school students, you're overwhelmed, and it's the magic question of it's weird, right? It's weird to ask somebody I don't know to help me. That's just, it's different. Well, that's called being an extrovert versus an introvert. And if you want the job bad enough, you have to put in the time to become an extrovert and make yourself different. How are you going to be different from the 300 other applicants that I have in that job? You've got to separate yourself from the herd. Make yourself different.
That's excellent. Networking. I can't tell you how many emails a day I get about networking events. Okay, Payson, what skills are important to see on an application for you?
So like the co-panelists said, they all hit on a lot of the great points. One of the things that I look for, especially for somebody that doesn't have a lot of job experience, is how they sell themselves with their personal skills. Have they worked on a team, volunteered like Stephanie had mentioned earlier, sports, do they play sports? What role did they play in those sports? As well as problem solving, perhaps, things they've had to, when they put this resume out, it's going to be uncomfortable, right? It's your first one. Like Mike said, you want to reach out to people to discuss it, to have them review it. But you've got to sell yourself on that resume so that you can get into the interview process. And in the interview process, like Mike had said, you got to do your research and be ready to ask questions. Because this is a mutual beneficial relationship we're about to enter into if you're selected for that position. So my first resume didn't have any job history on it other than a volunteer job I did in school, but I put on there some of the sports that I played and some of the obstacles that I had to overcome in high school, because that's important, because every day we're faced with obstacles in every job that you're going to get, and it's how you work through it and get over it, jump over that hurdle, so to speak, to get the job done. So a big thing for me is teamwork or collaboration with your peers in high school, because most jobs that you're going to get into, especially with my organization, teamwork's the most important. You're working with a team every day, and you're only as successful as you and your teammates work together.
That's a great point. I always think that you take something that is required for the job and you find a part of your life that fits that, even if it's not the particular, skill but how have you learned that through other things? So we have a question here from Patricia Morris. And we may get to this elsewhere, but I'm going to ask you now, if you have no experience and you get hired, what opportunities for advancement or movement within the organization?
Great question. And I'm sure everyone will have different answers. It really, really depends on the job you're in. And MaineHealth, because we're so large and we have so many locations and opportunities, growth is kind of endless, and it really is what you make it. So there are certain jobs where there's a clear-cut path. So for instance, some of our nursing roles, when you start as a nurse, you may be a nurse level 1. And then as you acquire different skills and experience, you may become a 2 or a 3. That's a little bit more clear cut. However, different jobs, you can, there are different skills that you can work towards to advance, and it really just depends on what you're interested in. I will say at MaineHealth and a lot of organizations, I have found that leadership is really open to discussing personal growth, and it's a really open environment for saying, hey, I'm here, I really love what I'm doing, but can you help me work towards these skills? Can we talk about professional development? I'm not very comfortable speaking in front of people. Can we practice that? And a lot of employers, a lot of bosses will help you with that and want to help you grow and gain those skills. So I would just say, when you enter an organization, that's a great place to start. You have the job you're in, but you can continue to grow, you can continue to work towards different jobs. And once you're in, you can see what's available. So I would just say be flexible and be willing to grow and be open to what might come your way. Again, networking, once you're in and you make connections, you might learn about a job that you never thought of that you're interested in. So definitely be open.
Charlie, do you want to take that next?
You betcha. Great question, by the way. We're a small business, and we're 40 employees. Keep in mind that you've got all sizes of businesses in this world, and all of them have different opportunities. And as Stephanie said, some positions you hire, they've got a clear-cut career path. But I'm going to take this from a personal standpoint at Contour 360, is that if we've chosen to hire you, you've already been asked that question. We want to delve into what is your passion? What are you looking for? What can we do? And keep in mind that I think one of the best pieces of advice I got when I was your age is remember, you're trying to fit the job and try to apply for the job, but also make sure that the company fits you as well. It's got to be a hand in glove. It's got to be a mutual win-win for both parties coming into it. And then find out also, I think that's a great question in the interview process. You want to bring up career path and personal development. What are those opportunities? That way, if there is, if there's a limited career path out of that position per se, then you'll know that up front. But you know, if you get into talking, the best thing to do is just ask them the questions. That question right there should come up if it has not already come up at some time in the process. The interview process is the time for you to ask all your questions. Do not be shy. Do not think there is a stupid question. A question is a request for more information. If you have questions, that means you have a request, a need for more information. And that's one of them right there.
Mike and Payson, do you, either of you have anything to add to that?
I think anything I was going to say, Charlie and Stephanie did a great job.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I would agree as well. The most important is to have that conversation in the interview process.
Perfect. And that's where we're going next, is to the interview process. So you get an interview. Yay. Michael, we want to address how job seekers should prepare for an interview. Should they have any information about your company and about the position when they that they are applying for when they come to the interview?
Yeah, so this is interesting, and I get to ask this question a lot. What should we do for interviews? And really, I sum it up as, not to go old school and use a sports analogy, but interview is game day, right? This is the day that you get with the interviewer, with the company, hopefully for the position that you really want. Now you've got to go in and actually sell yourself and make sure that you are the right candidate. You know, how much homework should you do? A ton. There's a lot that goes into the preparation for this day, down to being on time, your attitude before you walk in the door. And I'm kind of an old school guy compared to some today, but I will spend at least an hour or two researching the company and the position, understanding how does the position fit into the company? What is the overall impact of that position? What has the company gone through recently? Meaning, have there been acquisitions? Have there been mergers? What is the backside of the information? Who's the leadership team of that organization? Who's the potential leadership team for that actual position? And you want to, like Charlie said, make sure that you are prepared when you walk through that door with questions. I'm not telling you to come in with 100 questions, but I am definitely not telling you don't come in with any questions.
Yeah.
We at some point are going to ask you the question, do you have any questions? And there's nothing worse to say, no, I think I'm all set.
Yep.
So you're all set to spend the rest of your career here at this company and not ask me one question. That's a red flag almost immediately. I usually tell people, bring a dozen questions, try to get at least 3 to 4 or 5 of those across. I'm assuming most of those, at least half, usually are answered in the interview process. I tell people, you want to be early. Don't be more than 15 minutes early. Don't be less than 15 minutes early, right? You start to show up more than 15 minutes early, you're starting to impact that interviewer's schedule. It's okay to be a half an hour early, but sit in your car for 10 or 15 minutes. Make sure that you can find the facility. Where is the facility? How do I get to the facility? Will there be traffic the morning of the facility? Real life story, I've actually been in a car accident on my way to an interview once. Very minor, but nonetheless, it happened. I got the report, made it to the interview still early because I was early enough getting there. So, but again, make sure that you have all of this information written down and with you, because you're going to be nervous in that morning. You're not gonna remember everything that you thought about. Write it down, have your notes. And again, make sure that you're there on time, properly dressed, right? People today, The dress code is starting to slim to a business casual in the interview. I tell people all the time, show up in a suit, but again, make it dependent upon the job that you're interviewing for. And what I mean by that is if you're interviewing to be a welder with BIW, don't show up in a suit because we're going to give you a weld test. And again, that goes without saying, but for most salary positions today, you can't go wrong with overdressing as long as you don't show up in a tuxedo. But again, all of this goes into your game day preparation. I'll be the first one to tell you, shut your cell phone off, leave it in your car. Don't go smoking cigarettes or things before your interview. You come into the business reeking like cigarettes. Your cell phone is going off. All of these are distractions to you as well as the employer. You want to just, I say door handle to door handle. From the minute you get out of your car to the minute you get back in your car, you have to be on. It's game day, it's game time. Stay on, stay sharp, stay focused from the time you get out of your car to the time you get back in your car. That is essentially the interview, but that's a big, big day. There's a lot that goes into it.
All great tips. Stephanie, how important is appearance, wardrobe, and do first impressions matter?
Absolutely. Yeah, Mike had some great points. So thank you so much, Mike, for really kicking that off. You know, everyone will have a little bit of a different opinion, but I will say first impressions definitely do matter. Building off of what Charlie said and what all the other panelists have said, you know, this is your first in-person opportunity and maybe even your first person to talk to another, your first opportunity to talk to someone else. So if you haven't had a phone screen yet, you know, this is your first real conversation or your first in-person appearance. So first impressions do matter. You know, the age-old sayings, dress for the job you want and dress for success, they really do apply. They're really solid. And like many other, you know, steps in your preparation for your interview and for your application, research really can help. So you can research, you know, maybe what the company culture is, but if you don't know, or if you're not able to find anything, if all else fails, definitely be prepared. You know, dress, like Mike was saying, it really does depend, but it can't hurt to wear a nice dress shirt, nice dress pants, or a dress skirt. You can add a blazer, nice, neat, clean shoes. You know, stay away from jeans, sweatpants, leggings, sweatshirts, t-shirts. You know, you really want to present your best self, and you'll also feel good and feel confident and polished if you know that you've gone the extra mile to make a good impression. And today, I know Payson will also be talking about interviews with COVID, but in today's world, you may have a virtual interview. So some other general impression things, you know, make sure that your background, your environment you're interviewing in is tidy, not distracting. So again, that you can focus and your interviewer can focus on you and learning more about you.
Great. Charlie, what characteristics and body language do you look for?
Yeah, and just a brief comment on both Mike and Stephanie, especially the game day. Your resume, your application, the paperwork that you provide. Remember, it's like being invited to a tryout, okay? But also know that there's a lot of others that have been invited that have that invitation also. So if you've got an interview, that means you got a ticket. You got a ticket to game day. And you got a chance now to compete and to show your stuff compared to all of the other applicants, so to speak. So, Mike, I really like the analogy on that. What am I looking for? Body language is very, very important to me. I'm going to be, and I can tell you now with my co-panelists where they're at, we are going to be observing you from the moment we meet you until the moment you leave. What I'm looking for is I'm going to be watching your body language. I'm going to look, do you look me in the eye when we speak to each other? What's your hygiene like? Your dress? How's your overall presentation? Are you dressed for wanting the job? Are you articulate? Are you able to speak your thoughts and tell me what you're thinking? Do you listen? You know, there's a difference between hearing and listening. I want to know if you listen. How do you process information? I'll be able to ascertain that just by a series of questions and what your responses and what your body language is. Bottom line, and this is Charlie Day. I can't speak for anybody else. But bottom line, I'm looking for the skills and the aptitudes and stuff in you, the things that I cannot teach. You're coming out of high school. you're not going to have a lot of work experience. I want to know, do you have integrity? Do you have self-respect? Do you have respect of others? Do you have respect of authority? Proposed work ethic? Are you honest? What's your candor like? It says, put me as a soccer coach, okay? I can teach you ball skills. I can teach you the game. I can teach you all aspects of that game, but I can't teach speed. I'm looking for things in you that I cannot teach. Do I think, and I'm gonna tell you, one of the important things to me is, are you going to show up to work on time every day? What's your reliability factor going to be? Okay. So this is some of that I'm trying to draw through in that face-to-face, that interview, because if you got the interview, then you've already overcome one hurdle in that process. Now, as Mike said, it's game time, and I'm going to press you. I'm going to press you to see just what kind of a person you are, and are you a fit for this organization? And the reason being is, as I mentioned earlier, we make investments in every one of our team members. We're not into job placement. We're into career opportunities. We're into career development. If I'm going to make an investment in you, when that decision comes down, that hiring decision, you're the chosen one. And that's also going to say that you're willing to make an investment in us as well. That's what's going to be important on those applicants that come through, and why I look at all of these intangibles that come to the table. I'm also going to be looking at, are you a white piece of paper? Can I teach you? Are you teachable? Again, that's where the listening, the learning, and the doing.
That's awesome. Payson, how are you hiring with COVID?
So first, I want to say my co-panelists here today are great, right? And I hope that you are all taking information from everybody here in this room, because as you're applying for different positions, you're going to meet different interview processes, different people, and they all said it, and I can't say it enough, to do the research of the company that position that you're applying for. What we're doing here with COVID times, I always believed in the handshake in an interview. Well, I haven't done that in over a year. So we do phone interviewing. We don't do virtual interviewing very often. And then we have areas or locations set up that follow all the CDC guidelines at all of our locations. So an applicant, if they're selected and they're going to come in, it's going to be an in-person interview still. It's going to be in a large conference room. It's going to be spread out. There's going to be all the safety precautions, the mask wearing, hand sanitizer. And, that's your opportunity when you get in that room to show. When some of these co-panelists I mentioned earlier, advancement in the company, that was one of the first questions I asked when I started with this company. When I asked what at the time was the office manager that I interviewed with, and I knew the history of the company. And after I left that interview, I hadn't made it home before I got the phone call for the job to be offered. So it's important that you know where you want to go and you express where you want to go with that company, because it's the difference. And like Charlie said, we're making an investment too on your business development. All these companies continue to train and career develop you. And you're the driver of your bus. You determine where you want to go and how far you want to go.
Lots of good information. Okay, so the interview has happened. What happens next? Payson, how should a job seeker follow up with you after an interview?
So for me personally, I like a phone call or an email on the follow-up after. You can kind of gauge that, and it may perhaps be one of the questions you're kind of asking during the interview is how they prefer to communicate going forward. When do I expect I should hear something? How do you guys communicate after the interview process? So for me, I've always sent an email, or depending on how the interview went and how confident I felt with myself, I may make a phone call to the interviewee and just ask if they've had a chance to think the position over. Typically, the majority of what I receive is an email after. Just thank the person that interviews you for their time, and put a little bit in there about how you think the interview went, and tell them you look forward to hearing back from them.
Excellent. Stephanie, if a job seeker does not hear back from an employer after they've sent a note or tried to call, what should they do?
Yeah, so building off of what Payson said, I would say, you can take cues from your communication with the company on their communication style, and emails always great. But I personally would also recommend, and I have done myself, a handwritten note. If you're nearby, you can drop it off, or if you can even just pop it in the mail. that's it's something the interviewer can keep with them after, and it's a really, really great gesture. As far as if you haven't heard back, this is a little tricky because it's kind of a fine line. And again, it really depends. You want to be an advocate for yourself and you want to show initiative and follow through, but you also, there's a point at which you may need to, if you haven't heard back, let it go. As far as follow-up, you have your interviewer's contact or whoever sent up your interview, and you may have a direct contact for the coordinator or HR recruitment individual you've spoken with. So definitely, if it's been a week or two, within that time frame, follow up with an email or a phone call if possible, to just check in and see if there's any additional information, if there's any other information you can provide. And then, I would say basically, 2 weeks after, if you haven't heard back, at that point, it may be time to move on to your next opportunity. I wouldn't keep following up. That's just me personally. At MaineHealth, we have over 1,500 open jobs and we have a lot of applicants. So we have a lot of communication, and just remembering that your interviewers are, really busy and, doing the best they can as well. So within that 2 weeks, follow up, do the best you can to show you're still interested. And then at a certain point, it may be best to move on. And that'll really depend on you and the job you're looking for.
Perfect. And Michael, if a job seeker does not hear back or was not offered a position, should they try to apply another time?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. If a job seeker does not hear back, so a couple of things, and one, I'll give you a real life example. Like Stephanie was saying, be very careful because there's a fine line between communicating and over communicating. And real life example is I have a candidate right now that's calling me. He called me exactly 7 times in 10 minutes. What he doesn't realize is I have caller ID. And I came back to my office and noticed I had, literally 7 missed calls, all from the same exact person, no voicemail. So don't be that person. Don't blow up my phone trying to find, and I've spoken to this candidate before to let him know, hey, this is our process and how it works. So it's not just that I'm avoiding him. He just thinks that I'm now his new personal job interview operator. And that can be very detrimental to your candidacy as well. So, you have to be very delicate. And as Stephanie said, sometimes you just got to let go. So, if you don't hear back, one thing I would say is when you're applying, make sure you pay close attention to all of the very small cues and footnotes that you get, because a lot of employers will say things like, hey, if you're not selected, you won't hear back from us, or and these are all things in the application process. So I'll just give you a quick little perspective. Can you reapply? Absolutely, but look at the position. If there's multiple openings, don't apply back to the same position again. You've theoretically been ruled out for that job. There's probably a reason, and you're more than likely not going to be selected. However, if there's another position with the organization that's similar to that or that you qualify for, absolutely reapply for all means. But like Stephanie's organization and mine, I'll give you a 2019 number. It's not super recent, but we had 9,300 applicants to this organization. Wow. So during those 9,300, we did 7,000 interviews. So just to give you an idea of the quantity and the magnitude of people that we're dealing with, and that's a fairly small number compared to some organizations. But again, you're talking about 10,000 people that are roaming through our personnel system that we're trying to make sure all get feedback. But so again, it doesn't hurt to network. It doesn't hurt to put a call in. But again, no news most of the time is not good news in the employment business. If we want you, we're going to find you. We're going to track you down. We're going to hunt you down. But again, don't let that deter you from applying for another job.
Awesome. As a student, would it be seen as a bad tactic to use your job as a stepping stone or an opportunity to connect with other roles of expansion in this career path? And when might that be mentioned if you work for them for a short time, say only a year or two? I'm assuming that you don't want somebody in a job interview to indicate that they want to get into this field and then move on to work for somebody else.
And the short answer is don't talk about your next position before you've secured the one that you're interviewing for.
Well said.
Yep.
And one more quick, this is, I think, is a interesting question. How do you write or speak positively about yourself without coming across as cocky? I fear that I usually sell myself short in order to avoid bragging.
There's the difference between cocky and confident. Walk the line. I'd rather
Okay.
be overconfident and present that than to short yourself, because I don't know you.
Okay. All right, perfect. Now, last round of questions. All the panelists here today talk about the importance of learning, growing, and thinking in terms of career development. This first job is your first step on your career path. Even if you don't stay in the same industry, you will gain skills and learn things that you will carry with you throughout your professional life. Payson, I know you have an interesting story about your time at Dead River, where you started and where you are today. Can you speak to the progression of your professional life and how your professional life has been impacted?
I can. So this goes back to what we mentioned earlier of asking about the career and development opportunities within an organization. So I came here, did my research on the company, knew I wanted to get into this industry, but came here with no experience. So I started and I talked to the hiring manager at the time about career and development opportunities. And I started as a service dispatcher. I wanted to learn to do the service work in the field as a technician. So the company's great on career development. They put me through schooling. It was hard work for a while. I worked during the day and then went to school at night. Got my license, went into the field, got more experience as a service technician. Then an opportunity opened up for management in the service department. I applied for that and was selected. And then, as you know, I told my mentor at the time, my previous general manager, who still works here at a different location, that I wanted to learn to become a general manager. And what do I need to learn for that? And he worked directly with me on those. I told him what I thought my weaknesses were. And then the opportunity came available to apply for the general manager position. And that's where I am now. It's impacted my life greatly. You know, my daughters, they saw that hard work pays off. The willingness to learn and take on challenges and develop yourself is the best thing you can do. And any organization is going to see that talent in you, and they're going to want to develop you into future roles as well.
That's a great story. In the audience, there's a blog post shared in the chat that shows career paths at Dead River, if you're interested in taking a look at that. Michael, what was your first paying job, and what did you take with you that you still think of today?
Yeah, so my first paying job was actually at a golf course working for the maintenance crew, mowing fairways, mowing greens, taking care of sand traps. And one of the things I learned very quickly is you have to be on time. And the reason for that is that maintenance crew is out before the golfers show up, and you have to have all of these things completed to stay ahead of the first crew. As they go out to play, you're essentially staying ahead of them as to not impact their day and their game. And if you do, you tend to get disgruntled golfers per se that are not real happy. And the condition of the course will find its way back to your boss. So, you know, you learn very quickly that attention to detail is important. Showing up on time is important. Completing the task at hand efficiently is important because all of those things quickly get voiced publicly per se to the management team at the golf course. And I carry that with me today every day.
Good thing to remember. Charlie, you have held several positions along your journey. Why is it important to you to have job seekers who want a career and not just a job?
I'm going to get a little personal here. All right. I told you I had a gentleman, Warren Morehart, my guidance counselor, who really supported and put through there to get me started. I come from a broken home and did not have a good childhood. And 18 years old, didn't know what I wanted to do. But somebody saw something in me, and I believed in myself. And so my first job was inside sales for a small manufacturing company. 18 years old. Matter of fact, I got it even before I finished graduation. I landed the job in March and graduated in June. So I'm in my 42nd year. I loved the industry when I got into it. Loved it, absolutely. This is where I wanted to be, was American manufacturing. So I'm not going to brag a little bit, but let me tell you what a career path can do for you. 42 years. I've worked in 28 countries. I've been in 53 countries. I've been in 46 states. There's only 4 states that I haven't been in, and those 4 states really don't have American manufacturing in them. But one of these days, I'm gonna rent an RV and go. Right. So as you go and as you define yourself and as you advance through age, you learn skills, jobs that are transportable. I've held many, many positions in my career with several different companies, everywhere from inside sales to a vice president. So, it's as you work through your career, is there a roadmap for it? No, that's the beauty of life. You write your own roadmap. I tell you what, I wrote mine. Some of it was luck, some of it was happenstance, some of it was just good old-fashioned elbow grease and sweat. But I tell you what, as you go through life and you get these transportable skills, biggest thing I can leave with you is always be honest to yourself, practice integrity, respect others, respect yourself, and most of all, respect life. And I think you'll do just well if you follow that.
That's excellent. Stephanie, your job title is Workforce Development Specialist. What advice can you add to what the others have already said?
I just wanted to say, Maine is a really great place to be right now. Maine's always a great place. I'm a little biased, but my fellow panelists are such a great example of this. But there are so many companies in Maine who are really invested in helping to grow people's careers and helping to connect with youth, share opportunities. We're all here today because we really want to provide information and insight into the working world in Maine. So I would just say there's so much of a focus right now in our state on workforce development. Going back to a little bit what I said at the very beginning, I always knew I wanted to do something in communications. I was really, that was my strong suit, but I had no idea where I'd end up. I knew it was something I could do kind of anywhere. And I will say that's true of a lot of different career paths. And like Charlie was saying, you can go kind of any way you want, and you'll sort of fall into things in life through networking, through opportunities. And a phrase that really stuck out to me was the growth mindset. And to me, the way I interpreted that is every opportunity that you have, and this is cheesy, I know, but every opportunity, whether it's a challenge or whether it was a great success, is an opportunity for growth. So if you're looking at a failure or a challenging interaction that you had, you can look at that as an opportunity to take experience from that and to move into your next role or move through your current role and in your interactions as a way to just grow yourself as a person. And I will say, at MaineHealth and many other employers, we're here to support you. So it's just a great place to be.
All of you, excellent information. So here's a question that somebody's asked. In the case that you want to change your career or leave your position, what is the best way to do that respectfully?
You want to give a notice. A general notice is 2 weeks. And you want to keep in mind that you may go back to that career path. You may go back to that employer, but when you work those last 2 weeks, you want to stay committed to that employer. That's who you work for. That's your level of professionalism. And that employer is going to probably give you future references for other jobs on your career path, especially fresh out of, when I first graduated out of high school, one of my first jobs was in retail, and he sold the business. And 4 years later, I ended up going back to work for him as a manager. So, and to this day, I still have a great relationship with him because he was a mentor. So remember, when you're leaving a company, you want to be as professional as you can because you're going to want those references for future need.
We just had this happen in our organization. Young man, 21 years old, been with the company 2 years, and decided he wanted to make a career change and make a change. He gave us notice, very respectful, gave us a 3-week notice, which was a week more than what we asked for normally, and it worked out well. Take note, before he walked out the door, out of my office, I told him, I said, Addison, that front door is always open to you. If you get down the road and find out that, the grass wasn't so greener on the other side, you're welcome back. You're a fine young man. About 8 months later, He came back through the door. He's with us now, and he's on a definitive career path. Sometimes you have to go look on the other side of the fence. We understand that is important. But to Payson's point, it's not in what you leave, it's in how you leave. And if an employer tells you, just like I did Addison when he was walking out the door, then that's a message to you that you did it right.
I would just add two quick things to both Charlie and Payson's point. Always give a notice. Two-week notice is absolutely mandatory. Anything beyond that is a bonus. Never, ever burn a bridge. Into Stephanie's earlier point, Maine is the smallest town in the country. So you may leave, but more than likely, we're going to know where you ended up, and we're going to know someone, and we'll come into contact again. So, to Charlie's point, you want to always leave on a good note, leave the front door open so that you have somewhere to return to. And even if you don't return, the chances are that you left on a great note are going to follow you throughout your career, especially in this state.
And if you're networking the way you all talked about, you're going to run into that person again down the road anyway.
Absolutely true.
Do you have anything to add, Stephanie?
All great points. I'm really just repeating at this point what everyone else said, but I have found too, I'm newer in my career, but my boss, my leaders have been really great resources to me and really supportive of my growth. But absolutely, yeah, give the time that's appropriate. And your bosses and your leaders can continue to serve as references in the future, and you really want to keep that relationship strong and end on a good note, because it'll only help you grow in your future roles as well.
Excellent. Thank you all so much for being with us today. I cannot express enough how pleased I am with everything that you have shared today. I think this is a great thing. I am now going to talk about the JobsInME website for the students who are interested in learning how to use a job board. So as a job seeker, you can search for jobs and apply to jobs without creating an account. If you're going to apply to a job, you at least need to apply as a guest, which involves a little bit of information, but you don't need to create an account. Although if you do, you can save resumes, cover letters, and have those so that if you want to apply to another job, that is in there, and it makes the apply process a little easier. So let's say we are just going to do a search here, this wide open search for all the jobs that are currently on the site in Maine. You can browse through this, not an efficient use of your time. Let's do, we're going to search for jobs that are within a radius of, we'll start with Gardner, since that is where the original request for this came from. Excuse me. Here's a job search for Gardner, Maine. You can see that it defaults to a 25-mile radius. You can change that to 10 miles or up to 100 miles. And the default is sorted by relevance. So since there are no keywords or categories in there, this is still just wide open, but it's narrowed down to within a zip code radius. You can go into advanced search and search by job categories. So let's say you want a construction job. You can do that, and it will filter that. You can leave that out. You can, in the advanced search, you can also search for minimum education for high school or equivalent. Now, keep in mind that the education and career level and pay type, those are not required by employers. So some employers don't use those. All jobs have to have a category. So if there's a particular category, that's a great way to look. But this gives you an idea of jobs that only require a high school education, which is for a high school student is a great place to start. But I'm going to show you how to apply to a job. I'll search for. So here's a position. I'll show you how to apply as a guest. Here's the job. It tells me about the job, everything I want to know, and I click apply now. Now it's going to ask you to sign in if you have an account. If you don't have an account, it's going to ask you to sign in as a guest. You can just put in your information. And this is so we have information for the employer. You can just put this information in and apply to the job. I'm going to log in as me. So I've logged in. I'm going to apply to this position. You can see I can build my resume in here. I can upload a resume. I can, drag it from anywhere, and then just apply down here, submit application. So it's pretty easy to apply, to find the jobs. It then shows you what jobs you've applied to, which is handy to know so that you don't apply for the same job that you've already applied for. And that's just the quick rundown of how to do that. That wraps up today's event. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you to the teachers. Thank you to the students for being with us. We hope that this was informative. If you have any questions for anybody, please send your questions to events@jobsintheus.com. We'll pass those on to the employers, or we will get back to you. Thank you everyone for being here. That concludes our webinar today.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.